we are so grateful to Echo for having a Window Between Worlds here, to get to hold a space of safety for each of us here today, to look into our hearts and use art as a resource for transforming trauma. We're going to share a video so you can get a little sense of what we're doing here today. The video is called Art Transforming Trauma Tree, and today you'll get to actually create your own Transforming Trauma Tree. What we really want to do today is two things. We want you to have a space. You've heard so much today, so many amazing speakers, so much information, so much reflection. And when we all got to text in, what does trauma look like for each of us? As I read those words, tears came to my eyes, and I know the trauma that we each hold in our hearts is unique, that we each experience in our communities is unique, and seeing all those words is very powerful. And what does resilience look like? Those words as well. And as we create art today, it's a space for us to look into our hearts and explore and release. One of the things that Louise mentioned at the beginning of the day was the 3 steps, the three stages. And on the little cards on the table, the safety as the first one, and then the remembrance and mourning, and then reconnecting. And as we create today, it's an opportunity to really have space to look into your heart, have the safety to really hear what you're feeling at this moment. As you create, you don't have to create the most amazing creation that speaks for your community or even for you for all time. You get to create what is in your heart right now at this moment as you process what you've heard today. So A Window Between Worlds is a community of practice, a community, a network of leaders that work together. And so when I share the goal of you getting to create an experience for yourself, have that window of safety for yourself, I want to share that the second goal here is that you get to take a resource back and use it completely in your own way. As Susan and I lead, and especially as you hear Susan and how she works within her community, this is an invitation for you to take this in any direction that your heart speaks. So you're not only having this window of time just completely for you, but then you're having a resource that you could take back and lead, and you may get an idea that you're not expecting, that you will carry forward, a thread you'll carry forward from this ECHO conference that will change and impact and provide a resource to others. So it's really those two things. It's you just for you, and then it's you as a leader, a unique, different, each and every one of us. So before we watch the video and hear voices of other Window Between Worlds leaders working in many parts of the community, I'd like for us just to take 3 breaths together, just to set this time aside for ourselves. I'd like us to take 1 breath for all of the past, whatever that means to us. We've heard a lot about the past today. So if you'll breathe in with me, a deep breath, and let it go. And 1 breath for right now, in this moment together in this room, breathing in, and let it go. And 1 more deep breath for the future that we hold in our hands, in our hearts together, breathing in, and let it go. And with the open heart, we'll share the video. Do I press it or does it?
I got it right here.
Yeah.
Should have started right now. I'm doing it.
Okay. Right here. Touchstones are that resource. whether it's for a change that's 2 decades in the making or 2 seconds, that split second when you get to go down a different path. That's what these panels are.
What I really liked about the creation part is noticing that we can't just ignore it and suppress the things that we're trying to move away from. And everyone's experienced trauma in different various ways.
Trauma is everyday life for a lot of my students.
I used to feel very invisible. I could be in a room filled with people and I had no voice.
And I also grew up with child abuse, sexual abuse, and of course intimate partner abuse.
They feel like especially the veterans feel like they can't even relate to anybody else with trauma.
Almost like a little piece of death that we carry with us, and we constantly struggle with these things, like I can't do it, it's overwhelming, or I don't have anybody.
The population I work with is gang impact, and a lot of them want a peaceful life. There's a lot of symbols of peace, from prison to peace, from anger to peace, death to peace.
I have a lot of love to give, so I'm moving away from hurt to victory.
And we, as survivors, can create change. We can change the world if we hold on to each other.
Art transcends differences.
Art allows us, I believe, to be vulnerable at times, and in that we're able to grow and change.
We face defeat, but we are never defeated.
I'm grateful for the art. It kind of holds me and centers me.
I enjoy it so immensely. Total healing coming from every stroke, every idea, every pour, every dot of my paintbrush.
As I was looking at the colors and how they're mixed together, what kept coming to me was about connectedness, and everybody's different. There's all kinds of different colors, and somehow we're kind of intertwined and connected to each other through art.
What I take from this is feeling alive. Feeling alive. The art making you feel alive.
And my word that I put in there was rebirth. That's what art is to me.
What I hope for this panel to reach others is hope.
It's so fitting that this is part of a tree, because again, when you're thinking about life and you're thinking about cycles, you're thinking about just being able to grow from ashes like the phoenix, and to reinvent yourself and to be able to move forward, and to really see art as a way to look ahead.
And doing these touchstones with them was a window of space to reflect.
It is a custom for muralism and murals when they come together, whether it's in a community, a school, wherever it may be. It is not complete until we welcome it home. Now that the tree is here, to me it signifies that as a community, we can allow the demonizing to stop.
For me, this tree, it symbolizes very strong roots. So the roots of our ancestors and people that have gone before us, and the collective strength of the community to heal and to survive.
For me, this tree represents unity. We come from all different experiences and all different traumas, but we can all come together and make something beautiful. Each and every person in this tree represents love and healing and hope.
For me, this tree represents a window of safety and an invitation to everyone to be part of transforming trauma. as you looked at that tree, I just want you to know that in creating that tree, each touchstone that you saw on the tree was not only created as part of that tree, but it was created as something that that individual was carrying in their life, in their families, in their day-to-day. We invited each of those leaders to think about, and each participant in that process, think about where am I going from with regard to trauma, and what am I going toward, and to create touchstones that would be a resource in that journey. And so when we create today, you'll be creating a tree, or you'll be creating whatever comes to your heart. It may not be a tree. You'll be creating a piece, but you're also welcome to create touchstones that you can carry that are separate, carried on your journey. And just to share a little sense of that, like one of the leaders that you heard sharing that in LAUSD, when she shared that with her students who are impacted by trauma daily, one created a touchstone that said, I need 5 minutes. And he carried it with him. He was someone who had tried to commit suicide twice. And he carried that stone as a way to communicate when he was too flooded, when he needed to take some time to self-regulate. It was a way to put into words what he couldn't put into words. And so I'm sharing that because Touchstones is the journey. It's not the piece of art, it's not even the stone itself, but it is the process of using it. And as I think about what we've talked about today, I think about our leaders, our advocates in the community who are using art to create change that may take not just 2 decades, may take 2 centuries. We're talking about each of us facing what we may feel is impossible. And for that boy, living another day is what felt impossible. And he made that stone so that he could connect and communicate in a different way. And for some of us today, we may have a vision that we put on a stone that we feel is impossible, and it may take 2 centuries. But it's important. It may take generations. And as you hear Susan share in her work in the Native American community, thinking about 7 generations, these touchstones are meant to be something that impact and help us go down a different path, whether it is that split-second path or whether it is that holding on to hope, meditating with that stone, and seeing what actions we can take that will make change so far down the line. And I just, before I hand it over to Susan, just want to share personally. When I started A Window Between Worlds, it was 25 years ago. And I started it simply because there was so much that I couldn't put into words with trauma that I grew up with. And art was just my way of saying what I couldn't say. And I began going from shelter to shelter across the United States, sharing art as a circle of safety to say what couldn't be said. And I did it as part of that circle. I did it as a way to grow. And I share this here with you today because I'm also growing on this journey. And my touchstones, I use them. And right now, what's impossible for me is communication, even with my family. I'm using touchstones to talk with my brothers about what we survived and what we feel about that and what we do each day in the face of the feelings and the voices that come up in our heads. And I share that because this is a circle where we'll each use these stones in a very different way. And what matters is that we figure out the way that's right for us. So thank you so much for being part of this journey. And I want to hand it over to Susan.
Thank you, Kathy. I am so excited to be able to share this workshop with you and share the message of what can happen when you're able to integrate art into the community, into the work that you do. So at my agency, I work for United American Indian Involvement, and we are 7 Generations Child and Family Counseling Services, and we have had a beautiful partnership with A Window Between Worlds for 13 years. Being that we are a very small grassroots organization, if we didn't have the support from A Window Between Worlds, there is absolutely no way we would be able to integrate art to the extent that we do in our programs now. So what I want to do is I want to take a couple minutes to explain to you about how we're able to use art as a culturally responsive tool and integrate it to help people heal. So we're using it as a tool for information, for resources, for healing, and for transformation. So the population we work with are Native Americans. And so we're talking about trauma, we're talking about community trauma. And the Native American population is a population that is very familiar with trauma on many levels. So just to give you a little bit of history, I know later on in the conference you'll have more information, but let me just introduce the topic to you. So there currently are 566 federally recognized tribes within the United States. That doesn't account for the additional 300 to 400 non-recognized tribes. It's very political. There's a lot of resources and services that are tied to being recognized or not recognized. So that makes it very difficult, and there's some trauma with that as well. So going back in history to the early 1800s, the government thought it would be really great to rescue these Native people. And so they have the Indian Removal Act, which basically put all of the Native people onto reservations. And so that brought about colonization. And with colonization came about the destruction of traditional values. So people were removed from the areas where they were familiar with, put onto reservations, stripped of culture, stripped of freedom, stripped of practices and beliefs that they've had throughout centuries. And that's one example of the early trauma that has been experienced by this population. There's also the relocation movement of the 1950s, where we have the wonderful idea from the government again to save these Native people and move them off the reservations into urban areas. So they move them off, offering them incentives, great incentives. We'll help pay for your move fees, we'll get you set up, we'll get you a job. But then that was pretty much it. So you move people from poverty into a situation where they have no resources, all of their family, their support, traditional values, they have a disconnect from all of that. In addition, the assistance they received from the government was just temporary. Yeah, we'll get you started. And then once they actually got employed, then it's okay, you guys are good. We'll just leave you right there. So then you have people living in an urban area, which is very expensive, much more expensive than being on the reservation. People who have little skills, little abilities to be able to survive with that type of drastic change from what they've known. Then you have the boarding school era, which again, the wonderful people thought they would save these natives from having to grow up on the reservation and being exposed to this culture. So they moved them into boarding schools, and this was up until the 1970s that these boarding schools existed. And with that, again, stripped of culture, stripped of their language, stripped of their traditional dress. You have people whose hair is sacred having to cut their hair. Then they would go back to visit their families, and they wouldn't recognize their families wouldn't recognize them. So again, you have people stripped of all of their value systems, everything that they've known, having to learn a new way of being, but then not really knowing how to be in that new way of being. And we won't even mention the boarding schools and all of the trauma that existed, the abuse and oppression that existed in those environments. So then that brings us to talk about historical trauma and how that affects populations. And again, this is I'm helping to convey some of the trauma that was exposed to Native Americans, but I know many other cultures, many other ethnic groups can also identify with the struggle that the Native American people had. There's been a lot of oppression across ethnic groups. So we know that historical trauma is exposure to extreme trauma from an earlier generation that is now continuing to affect the subsequent generations. So we know from our own personal experience that culture provides a framework where things actually become meaningful to us. So through the lens of culture, we have our value systems. We have a sense of meaning on who we are, a sense of purpose, our purpose in the world, our purpose in society, our way of looking at and capturing the world, as well as providing a structure on how to understand and cope with the world. So if we look to the Native American population, people who've been stripped of that, then how do they cope? How do people who've been stripped of their culture, who've been stripped of all of their healing resources and traditions, how do they group together and heal? That's kind of where we are now with our population. So my agency works with the urban population here in Los Angeles County, which again, over 500 different tribes represented with different languages, different culture, different traditions that now are kind of all grouped here. We have some people that are very connected with their tribes. They go back, they visit, they have family there, they might have lived there before and come here. People who have participated in different rites of passage and different ceremonies. But then at the other range, we might have people who know they're Native, but have never been to the reservation, who don't even know what a ceremony is. We have people who don't even know what tribe they belong to. And over the years, because of the historical trauma, because of the oppression, you have a lot of people who it was a big family secret if they were Native. Shh, don't tell anybody. So we don't want anybody to know. But again, through the generations, you lose sight of like, what was that tribe? And who am I? And what does that mean to me? So we definitely work to try to reconnect people with their culture and help them heal. So with that, I want to talk about how the trauma is affecting relationships. So what we see at my agency is we have parents who don't know how to parent. Parents who didn't have that benefit of learning traditional values on healthy parenting, healthy communication styles, a way to heal when things happen, a way to come together when things happen, a way to communicate. So we have people who have been affected by this trauma who now have very little skills in knowing how to overcome the trauma that they're experiencing currently, as well as the historical trauma that they have been passed down from generation to generation. So we have the wonderful benefit of having a window between worlds and a number of their workshops that are proven to be very useful. With the Native American community, there's a very deep connection with art and expression. So we have a lot of wonderful Native artists who express themselves in different ways, whether it's through art or beading or dance or singing. And so I want to share a story of how I was able to use Touchstones, a variation of the workshop that you're going to do today, to help reconnect a father and a daughter. So at my agency, we had this father and daughter who were court-ordered to come to therapy. So they each had their own therapist, and they had been working with them for a little while to kind of get them prepared to do some conjoint work. They had a therapist that was assigned to help with the conjoint work. And so they had met for several sessions. Did not work at all. So every session was yelling and screaming and crying and breaking down and storming out of the room, and it was getting worse and worse until the young girl, who was about 14, 15 at the time, didn't feel safe, didn't want to even be in the same room as her father. Then you have her father who said, you know what, this isn't working for me. I don't know why we're even trying to do this, because we're making all this effort and we're really not making any progress. So then we shifted away from the traditional talk therapy into things that were a little less direct. So with the Native American community, a lot of times when you look at someone, again, in Western culture, it's very appropriate to make eye contact. But in the Native American community, that can be challenging, that can be disrespectful. And so we're trying to put them together in a way that just wasn't culturally congruent for them. So in being able to incorporate Windows workshops, we're able to help them express in a different way. So I was, one of the workshops that I had brought in was our Touchstone workshop, which was just amazing. So we sat down at the table, and I had each of them create 2 touchstones. So the first touchstone was about the past. So it was focused on the past trauma that they had experienced, expressing what they had lost, their grief, their anger, their sadness, and what they want to move away from. So these are things that they had been holding on to that they weren't able to let go. The second touchstone was focused on the future. That was their hope, what they wanted to work towards, their vision of what their relationship would be. So they created their touchstones, and they had the opportunity to share with each other what those touchstones meant. And then my assignment to them was to exchange touchstones and carry them. So the father had to carry the daughter's touchstones, and the daughter had to carry the father's touchstones for the next week. They were to greet the touchstone in the morning, read what the touchstone said, and think about the hopes and dreams and feelings of each other. Then they had to carry the touchstones throughout their day, whether it was in their pocket or in their bag. And then at night, again, they had to greet their touchstones, using that as a representation of each other and thinking about the feelings, thoughts, and experiences that each of them have, so as a way to honor it. So they took it in a way that I never even imagined. So we have this father who's been disconnected with his daughter for 7 years. There had been a lot of neglect and abuse and some substance abuse that had created this divide. So basically from age 7 to about age 14, 15, he had no contact with his child. So he really took these touchstones as a representation of his daughter. He actually created a bed for these touchstones, and at night, after he greeted the touchstones, he would tuck the touchstones into bed. And that was his way to actually nurture and care for his daughter in a way that he never could for the last 7 years. And it was great coming back after a week. They had to sit and think about this and come back after a week. And so we have these two individuals, the father and daughter, who couldn't talk to each other. Every conversation led to arguments and yelling, and they had thought the person who yells the loudest is the one who was going to be heard, but that doesn't work. So creating touchstones and giving them that space to express themselves in a different way actually gave them a voice where they could hear each other in a way that they never could before. So they were able to express to each other. So the father was able to truly move away from his anger and resentment and focus on the goals that he wanted. So his daughter was able to hear the love and care that the father had in a way that she never could before. And then we have this father who was able to acknowledge the pain and loss that his daughter experienced as well. So it became less about their individual experiences and more about being open to hearing each other's experiences. So they were able to connect and grow in a way that talk therapy would have never worked for them. So being able to use this art and use this way of expression was just so empowering and created movement in a way that we never could. So at my agency, we've been able to use touchstones that way, working either one-on-one with clients or working with small groups. We've also been able to use touchstones on a big community level, where we have a big gathering in the fall. We have a community gathering where we get hundreds of people. And so we're able to have a table set up where they have the opportunity to use touchstones as a form of expression. We also have small groups, so we're able to use touchstones to focus on small groups and looking forward towards the future and creating some change. One of the projects that we're so blessed to be able to be included on is our At the Core Transforming Trauma Together project. So it's kind of an extension of the Transforming Trauma tree that you saw the video on. So we have a group of about 15 people, and we're focused on 7 generations, since our agency is 7 generations. And we're looking at the 7 generations in the past and honoring the sacrifices that they've made, honoring their experiences, honoring their strength and resilience. And we're also looking forward to the next 7 generations on how we're going to be able to promote healing and growth within our next generations. And so we're wanting to create change in a positive way. And by creating touchstones, we actually have the opportunity to have something tangible that each of our participants can pass on. They can pass it on to people that are important to them. They can pass it on to the younger generations. So this touchstone is something that can be used within their family to heal over the years. So again, we're trying to promote growth and healing, and this is a way that each of them can personalize it. So they're working on a community level on this mural, as well as individually having that impact. So the big mural and the piece that we're working on, we're still working on it, something that's a work in progress, and we're going to be able to use this to open up and let our voices be heard. So this is what the group of participants want to communicate to everybody, including all of you in the room. It's a call to action. So they want people to honor their personal experiences and see how as a community they're choosing to heal instead of staying stuck. And they actually asked me to ask all of you to please join in the movement. So they want you to be able to look at their mural and see the message that the Native American community wants to convey, and they are inviting you to come and participate. So they're inviting you to contribute, they're inviting you to look at the finished product and be part of our journey.
so much, Susan. There's information that you have there that is about Susan's agency and a little bit about how she sees art being especially useful as a culturally responsive tool. So you have that page about United American Indian involvement, and also a page about Window Between Worlds. And then about At the Core, which is the name of the project that has grown out of the tree, where each agency is creating their own call to action, and Susan shared about hers. At the Core is also a call to action to each of us to take this in any direction that we're called to do. So you may, coming from today, decide you want to make your own mural in your community, and you would be welcome to do so. You might make touchstones you carry in your life, or you may engage whole groups of people. So I wanted you to know that the At the Core information is there, and there'll be an exhibit kicking it off in June. So that's there. So you guys ready to create? Anyone ready? Yeah, okay. Now I just want to ask you, does anyone hate art? Raise your hand if you hate art. It's fine, yes, yes. And does anyone feel like you're not good at art? Raise your hand, please. Yes? Okay, thank you. I want to welcome you into this space as a free space to do what you need to do. So you may find that what you need to do, and maybe some of you are even artists, I want to invite you to let today be different and to let it just be a window of time where when you create, you honor whatever needs to come out. It does not need to look any good way. You could stab the paper with the pencil, you could scribble, you could do whatever needs to come out is what this window of safety is for. And you may find that you just need to breathe and rest. And that is your window of safety as well. So any worries about art, just see if you can let them breathe them out, let them go wherever they go, but just know that you get to have freedom as you create. And maybe just in celebration, I know you've been hearing a lot of words, so in celebration of just transitioning into the creative part, if you can just get your hands free for a moment, let go of all the words you just heard, and maybe just shake out your hands. I'll invite you to just shake it, shake it, shake it. And I'll invite you to let your feet wiggle on the floor, make thunder, if you can. Yeah, shake it out, shake it out. This is your creative time, all right? And maybe another deep breath. And Susan will go ahead and share and introduce the project.
So in our Native tradition, we start everything with a prayer. Just to preface this, when we pray, it's in respect to persons of any religious affiliation, any background. And whoever's leading the prayer is going to lead the prayer in whatever way they're comfortable with, but we're also inviting you to participate. And you can participate by taking that moment to pray to yourself in whichever way is comfortable to you. You can take the moment to join in the prayer, or you can just take the moment to just sit in the room as being part of our united group. Creator, we thank you for providing this opportunity to learn, to share, and to be inspired. Allow us to pay respects to the indigenous people of this area, the Tataviam, the Tongva, and the Chumash. Please look over us today as we use this space to connect for healing and resilience. Creator, give us strength as we work to transform ourselves and the communities we serve. Aho. Okay, so again, we've all seen the video showing the creation of the tree representing community transformation. So now you'll each have the opportunity to create your own tree. So this is an invitation to reflect on everything that you've heard today. So we've had some really powerful speakers, we've had some really strong messages, and we want to be able to come together as individuals and collectively to make that meaningful. So you'll have this window of time to create a tree that's your own personal vision of change. So you're going to focus on what are you feeling or seeing at your roots, what are you feeling or seeing at your core, and what are you feeling or seeing in your vision. You might explore the strengths of your roots, you might explore the pain at your core, or you might explore the voice of your vision. So you can create your tree. You might create something different. You might want to sit and spend the whole time journaling, or you might just sit and let the tears fall down onto the touchstones in your paper. Whatever you do with this time is absolutely right. It's what it's meant to be. So whatever you create, however you use your window of time, is what's perfect for this time.
So Susan's going to begin with a visualization that is an invitation, if you choose to visualize with us. But before we do that, we want you to get comfortable with the supplies in front of you. So you'll see we had them sort of in the middle of the table, but if you can each pull a green page toward you, that's like, the green page is like a placemat. So you can scribble, you can make a mess, and do whatever you want to, and the table stays table. And you have a journaling page there that you can pull forward, and then you have a mat board. There are different colors. You might find you want to flip it over, use one side or the other. You have a mat board that's like your canvas. And you also have a bag of 10 touchstones that you will get to use however you want to in your creative process. And I'll walk you through some of the materials here. So you have the Sharpies, the permanent markers. You also have colored pencils. And then after we made these slides for you, we had the joy of adding in an extra wonderful treasure, which is the Craypaws. And I don't know if you've ever used or not used Craypaws before, but you can scribble with them, you can smear them with your fingers. They're just wonderful to make a mess, to cover almost like paint, almost like oil paint over the board. So I just wanted you to know those are there. And there's also wipes. There's the little moist towelettes that you can use because you might get messy with that. You see your bag of touchstones. You see the little circles of paper that can go onto your touchstones. Now, touchstones come in many sizes. Today we have the small ones, and you're making the canvases are kind of small. But there's also other sizes available, and you will have resources we'll share where if you want to get touchstones, use them in your life, in your community, you could click and order them from Michael's easily, and they come in bigger sizes too. So I just wanted you to know that because you may have seen in the tree there are bigger ones. The journaling page is there as well, and that's optional. When Susan leads to relaxation, your mind, it may be like that you process through words, so you could journal. You may just want to dive in with color and follow your hands and pick whatever materials you choose. It's going to be whatever you want to do. I'll share just a few examples of these are touchstone trees, just different ways of integrating the stones with the tree. You might also, here's some examples of layers. Like up in the top corner, you see maybe thinking about your from and just starting to scribble. What color does trauma feel like? Think of all those words this morning. What does it feel like? What colors, what shapes? And just let it out. What would resilience look like? Shapes and colors, and just start to scribble and perhaps then form it into a tree and layers on top. With this one, we added touchstones to the center of it and wrote words on stones, thinking of what am I going from and what am I going toward? What are those resources that are like my touchstones on my journey? And that's what those represented on this tree. And then if you're actually mounting touchstones onto the mat board, we found it's easier if you glue the paper onto the board first. And then after it's glued onto the paper, then mount the stone. And you see that's the glue there. Each table has 2 glues. You just need a little dot of glue to attach it there, and then placing the stone on. And if you're making stones that are not attached to your tree, you just put a dot of glue in between, press it together, slide it around, and that's your touchstone. So here's an example. And so today as you create, you may spend your time just in the from. All of the trauma that we just explored and just let it out onto that page. You may draw on both sides of your board. Who knows what you'll do? But it's an invitation to just see what comes to you and to honor it. Here's another one. This one has words. So just words, scribbles. And it has touchstones in the branches. So any questions about the supplies before we dive in? Oh, okay. All right, Susan.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and lead a visualization. So if you could sit relaxed in your chair, whatever's comfortable for you. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Become aware of yourself sitting on a chair. The chair is cradling and supporting your body. Notice wherever your arms or hands are resting, whether that's on your lap or on the table. Feel the floor beneath you, holding your feet. Pay attention to your breath. As you breathe in, notice the air filling your lungs. Breathe deeply into your belly. As you breathe out slowly, notice the air exiting your nose or your mouth. Allow yourself to relax and the tension leave your body with each exhale. Think about all you've heard at the conference today. Focus on the thoughts and feelings that have resonated with you. I'm going to invite you to visualize as you think about the conference and how it's resting with you. Let the words flow through you like wind through branches of a tree. Whatever vision comes to your mind is just right. Now imagine yourself as a tree. Visualize your roots reaching deep into the ground. What feelings or thoughts are deeply rooted in you? How do your deeply rooted experiences and values affect the way that you see the world? Now imagine the trunk of your tree. Think of the roughness or smoothness of the bark and how this represents you and your life experiences. Visualize your core. What are your core wounds, your core values, your core needs? Now imagine the branches and leaves of your tree. Think about your vision. What is your core purpose and how will you share that with your loved ones, individuals you work with, and the community? What inspires you and how will you inspire others? How will you use what you have learned today to connect with yourself and others in a way that will create change? When you're ready, open your eyes and begin to create.
Right on the back. Or if there's any stones that you want to create to carry with your tree. And continue to see if you can trust your first thoughts. Honor whatever comes to your hands as you create. We'll take a few more minutes of creating time, and then we want to take a time where you can listen to each other. So even if you're not finished, to just take a pause and be able to share. So we'll do a few more minutes creating. So exciting to see how different each piece is. So amazing. If you find that you look at your piece and feel like you don't like it, just know that you're probably not alone. Everything I make, I hate it while I make it. I really do. But I have to just live through that and honor it coming out. So if you feel that way, just know that's okay too. Just to let it keep coming out, whatever your hands, whatever comes to your mind and your heart. like some people are coming to a stopping place. How many people need another minute? Raise your hand if you need a minute. 2 fingers if you need 2 minutes. Yeah, 2 fingers. Okay, we'll take 2 more minutes. Keep going. And if you need a half hour, an hour, if you need a year, that's fine too, because you do not have to finish it. It can happen in its own speed. So no worries. You may create something today that's a beginning, and that may be just right for today. So we're gonna come to a stopping spot, which can just be a temporary pause. What I'd like you to do is just take a moment and look at what you've created. Maybe take a deep breath if you like. And notice what it means to you, if any words come to mind. Notice for a moment how it felt making it. Did it feel icky, awkward, free? What a mixture of feelings. Just notice how it felt. And what we'll do is turn to each other, and I'll actually set a timer so that you don't have to worry about who's sharing first or how long you're talking, because at a window between worlds, we want each person to have their own window of time to really be heard, or maybe even to sit in silence with another human being and just behold what they've created. So in your window of time, you don't necessarily have to talk, but you may want to share about what you made, what it means, how it felt. If you're the one listening, I would love for you to be like that warm heart, that warm presence that is there to just hear and to just hold that space of safety for that person, but not to make it a conversation. Even if you're just sitting in silence and breathing, let it be whatever it needs to be for that person that you're supporting. So if you can turn to each other and find a partner, and if you don't have a partner, I'd like you to raise your hand and look around and find someone else who's raising their hand to partner up. So who doesn't have a partner? Go ahead and raise your hand and find somebody around the room and find each other. Okay? And we'll do 2 minutes each way. So go ahead and decide who's going to go first and begin. Personal? Yeah. And how many of you felt your tree was, in this, it may be yes to both things, that your tree was about your community's healing? All right, beautiful. And how many of you got an idea of how you might want to carry a touchstone, aside from this canvas or this board, an idea of a stone that you might want to carry, like that boy carrying it in school, or like the father and the daughter? How many of you had an idea in that regard? One? Yep. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. What we want to do next, Susan and I want to welcome you, and we'll pass around the microphone. We want to hear your ideas, because in June, we'll share what Susan's agency is doing and other agencies you can see on that sheet about at the core, Homeboy Industries, Center for Pacific Asian Family. There's a whole cohort of agencies that are sharing. But I want you guys to feel you're welcome to be there, have your voices heard, and even have your leadership featured. On our website, we'll have an area. You may take this project and you may use it. Like Fran here, who leads conversations about racism and the legacy of slavery. And talking with her this week about today, she was sharing how using touchstones might be a way to enter into those difficult conversations and to even start on that, what feels so daunting, to start on that very personal level, carrying touchstones. Another person I talked to is a civil rights attorney, and she thought of the investigators who are hearing hate crime calls, and she thought of the touchstones being something she wants them to have in their hands when they're taking those calls, because they're not in person. They can hold their touchstone in their hands, and how grounding that would be for them in that journey of hearing about hate crimes, gathering that information. She also thought about, in her work with the Korean community and the Japanese community, wanting to use touchstones in a joint tea ceremony. Did this just go out? It sounded different. That's so weird. A tea ceremony that would be about healing, and she's talking about the wounds of sex trafficking and the deep historical wounds there, how creating a touchstone in that ceremony would be a way to have a deeper healing happen. So I'm just throwing out some examples, and then I'd love for you guys to just let your ideas run. So anyone who wants to share an idea, it may be something about you, what you created just now, or it may be just an idea that's coming to you, or maybe a question for Susan or I. So just go ahead and raise your hand. Any thoughts? Yes. And someone has a mic?
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
So that's okay. So I'm gonna come up here because I'm short. So this is a great exercise because it was like, ooh, we get to do arts and crafts. Like while y'all were talking, I was like, hurry up. I know. So anyway, so this is my tree, and I like the idea of words to describe things, but basically the root, the core, and sort of the vision, I stayed in that space. There's no trauma on here because I'm not down with that. Like I need to handle trauma, like it needs to go away. So this doesn't have trauma in it. So at the root was just abilities, genius, spirit, light, and wisdom. Those are the things that we're building from. The core is just certainty, period. Just certainty about all of that. And then it spawns happiness, integrity, excellence, whatever, music, power, movement, magic. Gotta put that magic in it. And something else I can't read.
All right, yay. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Someone else raise a hand if you have a thought to share over here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
My tree is an ankh with DNA running up. So essentially what it's doing is connecting all of the Western education that I've had with my roots, which is African. And the fruit coming off is prana, which is a connection of everyone and everything. So what I would like to do is help. I'm an educator with Kaiser. You've heard about them this morning. I would like to do some education with them to help with nutrition, but combining what we're learning here. How do we truly heal and not just think about how we're feeling? Putting a name to it, why are you feeling this way? And what unmet needs occurred, including connecting with your roots again. So that's my work that I'm doing now.
Beautiful, thank you.
Hello, I don't want to share my tree. I just want to share. I teach first grade and I have a lot of kids who have been through quite a bit of trauma. And I want to take this back to my classroom. And I want each one of my kids to have a stone to hold on to let them know that there is hope. And so that they can remember when they leave my room and they move on, that they'll have something to hold on to and that there's hope in this world.
Thank you so much. So as you're talking about taking it to first graders, you may already be there, but you can imagine that a larger stone is going to be helpful, and a larger touchstone for them to be able to create on. And so what I want to do is just point you toward, if you see that at the core information that you have, there's a link to our website. And when you actually get there, you'll see a toolkit on the sidebar. And the toolkit is here. It talks about the stones, and it has the live links on the supply page. It has a description of the project. It has examples of different ways people have used it in a family setting, or between spouses, or in school setting. The supply page here with the links. So you can just, and the large stones, they're only like 8 cents a stone when you order them directly from Michael's. And you can get all the supplies that you need and just be able to do it. For those kids to have that is beautiful. And we just shared with, there's a leader out in the Palm Desert area who just heard about this from a friend and on Thursday, and the next thing I know, she had already led it with her students. These were older students, but when they heard that, she actually shared with them some videos about, it was a random acts of kindness, like search that she did, and she found videos about how acts of kindness boost your serotonin levels. And she shared this with the students. This was just what she thought of, so I'm just sharing it as a wild idea that someone got. When they heard that they were going to create a touchstone that was for kindness for themselves, they almost cried. And one of the boys had been living on the streets for 2 years because his stepdad didn't want him around. And when he created it, it meant so much to him, and his peers I don't know why they voted, but they voted that his was the most beautiful. And he even let them take a picture. And so you don't know what's going to happen when someone gets that chance to make something that's going to be a resource for them. And the reason I know about it is because she actually, there's a reporting form on here, so she could share her story back. It's a writable PDF, and she emailed it back, and it was the most beautiful thing to see, and that's why I could share it with you. So anything you do, we would love for you to report back, because then we'll share it with another leader, and it might help them in the setting they're at. So I would love to hear what you do. Beautiful. Another thought, yes?
I also just want to share, not necessarily my drawing, but I'm working with Sally Stevens. She's my colleague, and we actually, my students, I'm at an elementary school in Carson, we have a section of our section for LAUSD, so it's 3 pieces. So I have 8 students working on it for the last 2 weeks, and it was a tier 3 intervention for me because these students' test scores are marginal and the relationships are even more so. But in working on our piece of the project, painting the squares for the last couple of weeks, they've begun to mix colors together to see who could create the most interesting color, and they have begun, and I can hear the talking, is that, you're really not that mean. And another student would say, well, I didn't mean to kick your backpack on that certain day. So relationships healing has begun as we do our piece for the larger project. So we're working on at the core right now, and I'm pretty excited about it.
All right. Any more hands up for sharing?
Over there.
Yes, great.
Okay. So my colleague and I are going to share our drawing. He had a different idea of his drawing, and I gave him some perspective. But for mine, I have a lyric that's in my head a lot of the times, and it's "Water me and I will grow." So my touchstone says "water me," and there's teardrops around it, and I drew a half face and with a color brown, and the other half I left blank, but I drew a flower out of it, and it says "I will grow." So it's just water me and I will grow. And Sergio.
Hello, everyone. I wish you could see hers from up close. That way you can appreciate how nice it is. So if you look at mine, it's actually a dead tree surrounded by living grass. But if you look at it from a different perspective, which is what Natalie did, it's actually a living tree. Even though the bottom is dried up. That's it.
All right. As you all think about whether you have something that you're brave enough to share, I want to say speaking can feel scary. So I encourage you to be brave, even if it's hard for you. But while you're thinking about that, I want to encourage anyone who wants to do it, unless your stones will slide off, I'd love for you to hold up your tree. It was beautiful seeing you hold them up. And I would just love everyone in the room, if you feel able to just hold yours up and look around for a moment. Take a look around at all the different creations. Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much.
That's so amazing to see everyone's perspective.
They're awesome.
The colors and the expressions, beautiful.
Yeah. We would love if you, what you've created here today, if it's part of your experience of Echo. I know Echo's sharing that they have the hashtag, what was it, Echo Conference 2017? If you post yours, if you want to take a picture of it, just to put it out into the world as your voice, and hashtag it, and be connected in each other in that way, please do. Please share what you've made, if it's a commitment or a vision. And if sharing it would be positive for you, please do that. And also know that on Window Between Worlds website, there's a gallery where feel free to post it there in the gallery. Anyone else want to share? A thought, yes.
I was just thinking of how helpful and therapeutic it could be.
You get the microphone coming? Yeah, sorry.
Here it is, here it is.
I was just thinking how therapeutic and grounding it could be with children. I have a 4-year-old who's starting kindergarten in the fall, and I definitely think it's something that she and I could do together for her to take with her into kindergarten. And I'm also a mom through adoption, so as we prepare to meet our birth mother this summer, something she can take with her to have on her person, and then that we can expand once we're back together so that she can sort of evaluate those feelings and what came from that and still hold them in her hand. So it was really beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. Excellent. Someone else have a vision or an idea?
I'm just trying to paint on actual stones.
There's the microphone. Beautiful. Yes, I'm glad you're sharing that.
Hi, I'm just curious if you've tried to paint or have people paint in the workshops on actual stones.
Beautiful, yes. So with Touchstones, what you'll see at the top of the supply page is that you can use any materials to create a touchstone, and we have used real stones. Paint pens can work on real stones. They're a little finicky, the paint pens, and a little expensive, but it's amazing to do it on real stones as well. Yeah. So you could use any kind of supplies to create with. Anyone else? I just want to share, since we've talked a bunch about the classroom, that it was my joy to get to share this in my son's classrooms, a first grader and a third grader. And I asked them to think about joy that they create. And I asked them if joy depends on what's going on around them. And what if things going around them are not good? How do they build strength in themselves? And we talked about Nelson Mandela. And it was a powerful discussion. They were angry. And they shared about the ways that they build strength. And that was a third grade class. And it was powerful to hear how they build their own resilience. I asked them to make a stone for themselves, but I actually also asked them to make one for their parents. And I asked them also to just always think about, even if it's unfairness in a day-to-day level, what do we do when things around us are not the way we want them? And that could be every day. But how do we respond to that? How do we have leadership for that? And the kids, it was really powerful. And my son actually made a stone for me. First he didn't put any words on it. Then on the back he wrote, "Pick a rock." And that was his advice for me. And I keep a bag for myself of stones. This is my resource. And when I connect with people or hear wisdom that I feel like is an important part of my path and my resilience, I make a stone of it. And I just, the other day, made one with Fran's words on it. And so when my son wrote "Pick a rock," he knows. When he sees Mom, he knows when I'm upset before I do, honestly. So, and he'll say, "Pick a rock." And so I go, and I promised him I always will. And it helps me get out of that the trauma when I get stuck